Hello, this is Carlos Allen again, and thanks for listening. Look, I want to talk about education. Education is very, very important to me. And the reason why I'm saying that is because if we want to continue to have our children move forward in the 21st century and beyond, we've got to give them a proper education. One thing I say to people all the time is that we cannot go back to the old gray days of yesteryear. What we got to do now is we got to make sure that we get the educational system rocking and rolling the way it should be, and that is continuing with the school reform that we have in place. One thing is that we're hearing about how we have a lot of teachers who've been fired, and what we need to do is find out if those teachers were fired legitimately. And then from there, if that's the case, then what we need to do is give them restitution. But then also, I got to pay attention to what the chancellor's saying too, because there's always two sides to every story. And I got to listen to the chancellor and find out exactly, what she's doing and how she's doing things. Because once I'm able to sit down and talk with the chancellor, then we can make sure that we are continuing with dealing with children completely and making sure that the children are getting the best possible education possible. Because this is not about the adults, it's about the children. But let me say this. Before we can even talk about the teachers, we got to talk about the parents. Because I tell people all the time, you can have the best school, the best teachers, the best books, the best building, best computer system, but if that child leaves that school system and goes home to a messed up environment or a dysfunctional household, how is that child ever going to learn? What's going to happen is this. That child is going to pick up the negativity from home or the environment and take it right back into that school system and infest the rest of the children. What do I mean by this? Well, let's say, for instance, you have a parent who's struggling and who's trying to survive and is trying to put food on the table and trying to keep the lights on. That parent may get to a point where that parent gets frustrated and they may get out in the streets. If that parent gets out in the street, then guess where the child's coming? Out in the street with the parent. So then what happens is that we have this revolving door that no one does anything about. But then they want to turn around and try to figure out why they're robbing, killing, selling drugs, and stealing. Because a lot of times they basically don't have the tools and they're broke. So what we got to do now is to make sure that we deal with the parents. All right? Because see, I got to deal with three aspects of people. And one is parents. Then the other is the grandparents who's taking care of some of our children. And the third is children who are having children. I tell people all the time, if a child lays down to have a child, that child need to learn how to make some money. And the reason why is because that child is going to be bringing another child into the world that's going to need all the proper nourishments possible. And it takes money to do that. And that child should not be burdening the parent or the grandparent because of what they've just done. The parents and the grandparents, I say this, I cannot and we cannot take care of your children if you can't take care of your children. So I've got to get the parent self-sufficient as well. Because see, once a parent feels good that they're able to feed their children properly, then they focus on the education more than anything else. It all boils down to economics. Some people say, well, money's not everything. But see, money is a start. And it definitely helps out. But see, what we don't want to happen and see as we move forward and we're trying to transform the city is to have where we have a tax base of people getting everything and the other side gets nothing. It doesn't make any sense and it's not right. And it has to stop. We've got to stop it, and I've got to stop it in my administration. We've got to make sure that all the children of the District of Columbia is getting the proper education that they need. And again, as I say before, we've got to continue on with the school reform. I personally feel that, when you have teachers who are basically being accountable for what they're doing, it's important. Because we got to make sure that the children are learning everything they need to know. Now, also, I personally feel that all children should still go to school at age 2. That's a policy that I would like to put in place. And the reason why I'm saying that is because children at age 2 are very, very intelligent. So instead of talking about goo goo gaga, we're talking about ABCs and one, two, threes. So by age 5, that child knows how to multiply and divide. So now that child has the ability to move forward because now it started early at age 2, and that's important. I also like to see our school system open up a lot longer. I like to see our school system opening up for 9 weeks in and 3 weeks off. That means that now the child is learning a lot more and they're retaining everything. It seems like when we have children who are out of school for 3 months or 2 months, whatever it may be, that's a long time. But if you basically have a child that is continuing to understand what they learned prior, then it helps the child retain more as they move forward in their future. Also, I would like to see that we have high schools that are is catered to a career. You know, I've learned this is that when children take tests, they may take a test just to memorize what they've learned. But then if you ask that child 3 weeks later what they learned, they have no clue on what they learned. But let's say, for instance, you're putting a child in a career at the ninth grade, and that child now is in an elective course where they're still learning all the basics, but they're in a career. Do you know that child is going to learn more because now they're doing something that they love? So it's like you give the children and you prepare them for the future, and trust me, we will have a much better school system and a much better productive children. So by the time they decide that they want to go to college or if they want to go into their careers, they can. Because see, not all children go to college. But then again, we need to make sure that all children graduate from high school and we prepare them for college or whatever career that they want. So that is my message on education. And I thank you for listening, and God bless.